Training Jiu-Jitsu at the beginning is just not easy, to say the least. But training Jiu-Jitsu in your 30s is even tougher. I started training Jiu-Jitsu when I was 33 and I have to say it wasn't easy then as well. So really I can't imagine what it's like to be training Jiu-Jitsu and starting when you're over 40. So lots of respect for anyone who's starting Jiu-Jitsu later in life. So a little bit about myself, I started my martial art journey when I was 28. I started training Chinese traditional martial art and kickboxing. And when I was younger, I played badminton competitively. So when I started Jiu-Jitsu, I didn't have a break from any sport. I was relatively athletic and I was in relatively good shape. However, I did start training in 2020, so it was still during COVID and we had just come out of our first lockdown. So I wouldn't say I was really fit, but I was in okay shape. So coming out of lockdown and starting Jiu-Jitsu was somewhat tough. I gained a little bit of weight and I wasn't as fit as I would like to be. So I had to be careful with how hard I can push because I don't want to injure myself. Like any sports, once you're injured, you'll be off and not be training for a very long time. So my philosophy at the beginning was just avoid injuries at all costs. But to be honest, at the beginning, I didn't know that Jiu-Jitsu can cause some catastrophic injuries, like how you can just blow up someone's knee, or how you can snap someone's elbow from just accidentally sitting on them. That actually happened to me, but obviously my elbow didn't snap, but I made a video about it. So I'll add a link to this video if you're interested. So needless to say, this video is about how to train when you're over 30. So these are some of the things that I do to manage and mitigate some of my injuries, so I can keep training and not have any time off the mat. So number one, you must have rest days. You're not in your 20s anymore, and if you're in your early 30s, I know they were only a few years ago, but once you're in your 30s, things start changing really rapidly, and you actually have to schedule in rest days. So when I actually started training, I actually had 1 day training, 1 day off, 1 day training, 1 day off. So I have a day to rest and recover before I go back to training. So my schedule at that time was I would train on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, and have Tuesday, Thursday, and a weekend off. And that would be 3 times a week. And if I can, I will squeeze in a Saturday, which is the 4th day. You must have rest days. If you don't rest and you get exhausted, you definitely run a high risk of getting injured. You start doing silly things and making silly decisions, and you will get injured eventually. And this will lead on to number 2, which is listen to your body. Especially at the start of your training, your body is going to be very sore and aching. Jiu-Jitsu is not like anything you've probably done in your life. It's a lot of really random and really strange muscles that you're using. And these groups of muscles, you don't use them in anything else in your daily life. So chances are you're going to be very sore and everything's going to ache for the first few months at least. So make sure you have plenty of rest before you go training. But if you have a schedule down and you don't want to rest, that's awesome. And if you do want to go train, and which I do recommend that you do even if you're sore, is actually go in very light. Tell your training partner that you're sore and you're aching and you want to go lighter. And if they're not a douchebag, they will listen and oblige. Once you've been training for a while, you start making a lot of friends. And you might even have a favorite training partner. Someone who's about your age and understands where you're coming from a lot of the time. And most of all, they will look after you. I would say stick with them for a little bit until you feel comfortable to go train with other people at a gym. But however, you should be making friends with everyone and train with everyone. But of course at your own pace. Don't go around and train with everyone and then get hurt. Number 4 is actually pretty important and not many people actually talks about it. And that is you don't have to say yes to every single role. Just because a purple belt comes up to you and asks you for a role, it doesn't mean you have to say yes. If you're not comfortable with rolling with them and you know they're a bit rough, just say no. Or just tell them that you're having a rest. Don't let anyone peer pressure you into rolling with them. Because at the end of the day, it's your body and you know it best. Number 5 is quite obvious, but I do see some people not doing it. And it's crazy to me. And this is just to defend yourself. If you're rolling with someone who is rough and you know they're rough, you have to defend yourself. If you're rolling with someone young and full of energy and they're throwing their legs and throwing their arms everywhere, you have to be aware of them. Cover yourself and make sure they don't land on any of your limbs. When someone's young, they don't understand how hard it is to recover from injuries. You can't always rely on your training partner to not hurt you. I mean, they don't want to, but accidents do happen. So to prevent anything like that from happening, you have to be proactive. Being safe is your own priority and you have to take it seriously. If something hurts, just tap and restart. If something feels strange, you should tap, restart, and see what's going on. Don't let things break if you can tap. Simple things like if your knee is twisting or bending in a way that you're not supposed to, just stop right away. Knee injuries is probably the worst type of injuries you can probably get in Jiu-Jitsu, and it will take ages for it to recover. So really look after yourself. Strength and conditioning is something that we don't do a lot in Jiu-Jitsu, but I do notice that a lot of people are becoming more and more aware of it, which is a good thing because now there are more people lifting weights to complement their Jiu-Jitsu. You can never go wrong with some extra muscles, and the same goes for flexibility. Having some extra flexibility means you're less prone to getting some sort of injury from muscle getting stretched out. For example, if you're more flexible on your shoulders, if someone decides to crank and rip your arms off with a Kimura, you actually have a little bit more time to tap out before it rips. And number 7 is also common sense, and I can't believe I have to say this, and that is to be aware of your surrounding. A lot of injuries are actually preventable, and if you're aware of them, you can actually avoid a lot of them. Granted, there are some that can't be avoided, and those are the ones that are actually quite catastrophic if it happens. But for things that are actually avoidable, you can avoid them with just simple common sense. Like if you see two people standing up and doing takedowns and taking a lot more mat space than they should, you might want to move out of the way and somewhere away from them, so they don't throw each other and land on top of you while you're rolling. Same goes for if you're rolling closer to other people, chances are you're gonna run into them, so you should probably reset, go somewhere where there's more space, so you don't run into each other. And of course, tapping out early. Honestly, nothing is worse than actually having someone in a submission and they refuse to tap. It's like you're playing chicken, except you're on a motorbike and I'm in a semi-trailer truck. I obviously have the upper hand and I am not going to swerve. So in this case, I will actually apply pressure slowly, hoping that they will tap before they actually break. So the lesson is really just to tap out early before it breaks, really. There is absolutely nothing wrong with tapping out. And if your arm is isolated and there's nothing you can do about it to defend, just tap. If you're rolling with a girl or someone smaller, if they tap you out, just freaking tap. You tap, learn from your mistakes, and start again. Anyways, that is it from me. If you have any questions or if I've left anything out, please leave it in the comments below and I'll see you in the next one.